Yes, good morning, everyone. We're here at the PB offices, and for our audit committee meeting, it is 11 o'clock. I just want to confirm a quorum. Okay, we do have a quorum. Any public comments? No public comments. No public comments, so we'll go ahead and start with the agenda. The first item on the agenda is presentation discussion of audit committee calendar.
Yes, good morning, Chair, members of the board. Melida Pinales, Director of Internal Audit, and we have the team. Okay, for the 2025 Audit Committee meeting schedule, we have had 2 meetings this year. The first meeting was held January the 30th, and the second one was done on April the 16th, and this will be our third meeting for the year, and then we have tentatively the last one scheduled for November the 20th, or unless, the date changes. Okay?
Very good.
Thank you.
Any questions on that? No? Okay, let's go to the second item. Presentation discussion of annual audit plan fiscal year 2024-2025 status update.
Yes, sir. So with that said, we did provide an updated PowerPoint because things have changed from the initial date that we started working on this document. So if we refer to Q1 status report, these are all the audits that we've done. It does include the start and the end date, and of course the status. So all of these items have been completed. Do you have any questions on any of these?
Okay, I don't have any questions on this.
Yeah, I'm good too.
Thank you.
Go to the next slide, please.
Yes, sir. So the next slide has also the follow-up audits that were conducted for Q1, and all of these have also been completed.
Okay. Next slide, please.
Okay, so if we move on to Q2, during Q2, the only thing that we do have currently pending is the pre-treatment. This audit has been completed, and it's currently being reviewed by executive. That would be with Mr. Paul.
Okay. And do we have an approximate date when we're going to receive that report?
It'll be ready for the next audit committee meeting.
In November?
Right.
I do want to point out also on the Calpine Hidalgo meeting, that meeting has not been scheduled, so I don't know if Mr. Dombrowski has an update on that.
I do. Calpine is currently being considered for acquisition by Constellation, and so there's some quiet period of time going on right there. I will reach out to them. I know we have a budget meeting that's required by the end of the year, but I will find out from them.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes these things close and sometimes they don't close, right? So we still need to start with the process. Thank you for that update. Okay. Any questions on any of the other audits? Okay, very good. Thank you.
Okay,
Next
so
slide.
moving on to Q2, the follow-up audits. These are the follow-up audits that we've completed for the quarter.
Okay, and just for clarification, by follow-up audits, you're talking about, can you define that?
Yes, sir. So we do, when we conduct the audit and we finalize the report, then we do a follow-up within 6 months from the last issuance of the report. So all of these have already been completed.
Okay. Very good. Okay.
Okay, so moving on to Q3. On this one, we do have some updates. So on the general manager, we do have in progress, but we are finalizing the report writing. We're also finalizing the report writing on the electric T&D construction and maintenance, and also the digital information platforms. On the communications and public relations and the call center, we're in the process of completing testing.
Okay. So why is, I'm just looking at the one that's, I guess, the oldest in terms of start date. It's that second one, general manager. Why is that one still, why does that take so long?
So the way our process works, we kick off audits, we give them 10 working days to provide support. Then while we're waiting on that, we're testing other audits, and then we're report writing. So that one took a little bit longer to get the information. and it required a little bit of more testing. So I will take the blame on that, but we will finalize that. And the only thing actually that's pending is to clear the findings with the general manager.
Okay. Any recommendations or questions on that?
No, not that one, no.
If possible, I think maybe next, for November, the ones that are in process, you can kind of put estimated date of draft completion or
Okay.
something. I know it's not going to be final, but just so that we'll have an idea.
Yeah, oh, yes, sir, we can do that.
Very good, okay.
Okay,
Next
so
slide,
moving
please.
on to quarter three, the follow-ups, all 3 follow-ups have been completed.
Very good. Okay. And then let's go to fourth quarter.
Yes, sir. So on the fourth quarter, this quarter is July through September. So a lot of these have already been initiated, so training and organizational were in progress. The asset management, I'm almost wrapping that one up. The ones that say have not initiated, those are the ones scheduled for the beginning of September.
Sure.
So we should be wrapping up all of these hopefully by the beginning of October. They'll probably hit into the new fiscal year.
Hey, and on this one, again, you'll see the meeting not scheduled for the Calpine Hidalgo, but that was April, then it's again in.
Yes,
fourth
sir.
quarter.
So prior board had directed me to ensure that these meetings were happening. So that's why I have it in my calendar to ensure that this happens. So what I do is I attend those meetings and then I come back and I do a report, of what was in the agenda, who attended, and like a brief update indicating the board that this happened.
Okay. And PUB attends those meetings how often? PUB representative?
So we changed the process about a year ago to be more consistent with the existing contract. So we created intended was a management committee, and Mr. Perez and I are 2 representatives for BPUB, and then there's 2 representatives from Calpine there. And so we were intended to have quarterly meetings of that management committee, and there's some requirements that management committee has to approve. The next one being the annual business plan or the budget. I believe their calendar year is a fiscal year, so we usually have that meeting, I want to say in October or November. I believe that's probably the one that
Yeah,
she's
fourth
referring
quarter.
to. So I imagine we will have that meeting, I just have to figure out when the schedule will be.
And do they keep the meetings, y'all do it virtually or?
We've had them virtually and in person, so.
Okay.
We usually have at least one per year at the actual plant.
Okay. All righty, very good. Okay,
Okay, so moving on to the follow-ups for the fourth quarter. These will be done in September because the reports were finalized
sure,
about 6 months ago.
very good. A lot of audits. Okay, if there's no questions, we can go on to the next item, item number 3. Presentation discussion of audit reports for fiscal year 2024 and 2025. A, audit report with no findings, audit reports with findings, 6-month follow-up completed, 6-month follow-up pending, certain items not completed.
Yes, sir. So the audit reports with no findings, key internal controls are satisfactory for all of these areas. So just real quick on the board of directors, this was classified as a moderate, and we did look at policies, budget, and contracts. On the electric operations, this area was also moderate, and it was previously under the electric T&D. So we also looked at budget and contracts. For the meter services, this was categorized as low, and we looked at the operational processes. This is the department that is in charge of connecting and disconnecting meters, either for regular requests or for non-payment. We also did a review for the North American Electric Reliability Corporation. This was categorized as moderate, but in this one, it's called a review. We are not allowed to do a full-blown audit, but we do look at the contract and the budgets, and we did review the findings from the audit that was actually performed by TRE in 2023. And then on the unannounced cash counts, these are just, it's part of the yearly, and we do these once a month, unannounced.
Okay. Audits with findings, can you report on that real quick?
Yes, sir. So on the audit reports with findings, All of these we will conduct a follow-up. So on the accounting and treasury petty cash, we did have one finding. It had to do with the procedure. The final report was issued in June of 2025, so we are scheduled to do the follow-up in December of this year. On the analytical laboratory review, it's also, we can only do a review. We cannot do a full-blown audit of this area. So we did have two findings. One of them had to do with the HVAC replacement project and expired contracts. This report was finalized in June of 2025, and it's also scheduled to be for a follow-up in December of this year. On the cross-connection control, we did have 6 findings. They had to do with work instructions, job descriptions, enforcement requirements, CSI for new water services, CSI for existing water services, and allocation of resources. This one was also finalized in July, and it's scheduled to be, the follow-up is scheduled to be done in January of 2026. On the environmental compliance, we did have one finding pertaining to procedures and work instructions. The final report was issued in May of 2025, and we are scheduled to do the follow-up in November of this year. And then for the facility maintenance annex, there was 2 findings, facility security access and contract JSA forms. This final report was issued in July and is scheduled to do the follow-up in January of 2026. Moving on to payroll. On payroll, we did have 5 findings. The policies, it had to do with policies, procedures, the program, temporary assignment process, paid and unpaid leave of absence, timekeepers, approvers listings, and AOC process. The report was issued out in April and is scheduled a follow-up for October of this year. On the raw water supply, they had one finding having to do with job descriptions and license requirements. The final report was issued in June of 2025, and the follow-up is scheduled for December of 2025. We also performed a cash count number 5. There was a cash shortage. The final report was issued in June, and the follow-up is scheduled for December of this year. On the water and wastewater operations, we had one finding having to do with the records retention process. The final report was issued in May, and the follow-up is scheduled to be done in November of this year. And then finally, we have the water and wastewater plant, we have the water and wastewater plant maintenance. This one, we had 5 findings. The findings had to do with contract management, lack of contracts, PM inspections, contract template, and contractor JSA forms. The final report was issued in July, and the follow-up is scheduled for January of 2026 of this year. So that's just a small recap of what was identified, but we will come back and report once we complete the final report.
Right. I have a question.
Yes, sir.
So we have these findings, the report is issued, it goes to the supervisor, manager, director, or whoever, and then I'm assuming that with all these findings that there was agreement that, okay, the finding was valid, and then there would be a follow-up.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So the process entails, once we complete our field testing and we write our draft report,
Right.
we clear with the different levels of management. Yes, sir. And then we give them 10 days to receive a response. There are instances where they do not agree, and then that's where we will sit and try to determine where did we get the wrong information, or did we misunderstand, or if our information are facts, we will sometimes rebuttal indicating, that you're not in agreement, however, this is what we identified, so the finding is solid.
Okay, so I know this is a lot of information, so you may know the answer or not, but the findings the number of findings that are listed for these items on this slide, was there agreement? Was there any one, and I don't want you to pick it out or anything, but were all these, pretty much it was an agreement, or were there in here some that, I've received audit reports myself, and sometimes I agree, and sometimes I don't agree. I don't understand how that works. It's not agreement every single time, but on these here, were there pretty much agreement, or was there anything that kind of was, now it's still pending to be resolved because there may be a disagreement or additional?
No, I think I want to say about maybe 98% was in agreement.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And Mark, if I can ask a question, because I know Marilyn's not here, but once y'all receive these, how often do y'all, like as a senior management group or executive group, do y'all review these together, or is that just kind of done individually with that specific director or supervisor?
So the draft report usually goes to the director level, and they'll work with the managers to evaluate whether they agree or don't agree. If they agree, what their approach is to addressing the audit issue. Once they do that, then it comes to me for review, and I do the same thing on those. I tend to focus on the ones that I think are high-risk issues that, we need to drop everything and fix now, or those that we can address in the sort of administrative process, whether like job descriptions or something like that. But those are reviewed, and then we send them back to internal audit, who finalizes the report before she sends to you.
Oh, perfect, very good. All right. Good. Anything else on this slide?
No, sir.
Okay.
Okay, so moving on to the 6-month follow-up completed, out of all the follow-ups that we conducted for the past quarter, we only had this one that completed all 4, there was 4 findings. The final report was issued in September of 2024, and we did the follow-up in March of 2025. So this one didn't make it to the April meeting. We were still in the process of finalizing the report. So the 4 findings were completed. They completed their procedure and work instructions. They completed the corporate credit card transactions, the monthly audits, and the corporate card cancellation. So everything has been taken care of.
Okay. So by completed, just again, just for clarification, but for completed, you mean the audit was done, the audit was completed, there were findings, the management agreed to the findings, submitted an action plan or response, you went back, and then they complied with those responses, so the audit is officially closed?
Yes, sir. So what we do is we request support to ensure that these
Sure.
items have been taken care of.
Sure, very good, okay. Next slide, please.
Yes, sir. So moving on to the 6-month follow-up pending. So these are follow-ups that we have conducted that still have certain items that have not been completed. So on the first one, we have the electric T&D new connections follow-up. So this report or this audit had 8 recommendations. 7 of them have been completed and 1 is still pending. So they still have pending the procedures and work instructions. I do want to mention on the procedures, we recently lost our manager that was in charge of this responsibility or this task. So you're probably going to see on a lot of these that they're still going to be pending. The position did go out today, Mr. Paul. That position falls directly under Mr. Gonzalez. So I do want to make that, want to inform the committee of that.
Okay.
Okay. Any questions on this one?
No, ma'am.
No? Okay, so moving on to the facility maintenance 511 service yard follow-up. We're also reporting on the follow-up. Out of the 5 recommendations, 2 have been completed and 3 are still pending. So they've completed the job descriptions and the custodial work request, and they still have pending the procedures, the key inventory and distribution process, and the facility security access.
Okay.
Okay, any questions?
No.
Okay, moving on to the human resources follow-up. Also, out of the 3, 2 have been completed and 1 is still pending. They've completed the misclassification of employee recognition program budget expenses and the employee recognition program, and they're still pending the procedures, the handbook, and the work instructions.
Okay.
Okay, moving on to legal services contracts follow-up. On this one, all recommendations are still pending.
Okay. Okay, the next one, procurement card?
Yes, sir. So on the procurement card, they did have 6, out of the 6 recommendations, 4 have been completed and 2 are still pending. So they've completed the active P-card holder listing, the P-card administration process, the P-card holder transactions, and the inventory list, but they're still pending the procedure and manual and the P-card audit sales tax.
Okay.
Okay, moving
I
on
have a
to the real
question.
estate follow-up. Oh. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, so are there deadlines for when these need to be completed?
So that was one of the conversations I recently had with our new committee chair. Once we complete the follow-up, we do not do a second follow-up. It's something that we've talked about, that maybe it should be something to ensure that all of these open items are closed by a certain date. When we complete the initial report, we do expect an estimated completion date. Many of the times, they put that it's going to be after the 6 months, so it just depends on what what the finding is. But to answer your question, we do not do a follow-up of a follow-up.
Now, it still remains as the report as, I guess, an open audit or a pending item.
Yes, sir, we report it as still in progress.
Right, right. Okay.
And just for my understanding, and these open items, they can range from things that are like very important to things that are just minor?
A lot of the things that we don't report, we put them in as an issue or as a talking point. So these are actually the things that make it to the actual report that, in my opinion, would be considered something that needs to be addressed.
And so, for example, procedure and manual, what does that mean?
So what that means is that the procedure and the manual have not been finalized, or they're still in draft, or when we sat with them, there was a lot of variances, so that means that the document is either obsolete or outdated and needs to be updated.
I think
Okay.
that I think I would mark as, maybe the executive team kind of get together, and I'm not going to tell you to, the board's not going to say this, but sometimes things that have been, like in other audits, if I receive an audit and they find some findings in an area that I'm responsible for, I'll agree or disagree, and there's some of those things that I will tell you that I absolutely disagree with, and then we have to go through a process of seeing, okay, what's going to happen in that specific item. But the items that I do agree with, the items that I do agree with, because again, no one is perfect, that's why we have an audit and checks and balances, is to, try to catch things on our own accord and then to try to fix that to make everything better. But one thing that I've done on the audits that I was responsible for is I had to give a deadline. I have to say, I agree and I will respond by this date. It's December 31st, 2025. And then that kind of a commitment on responding. And then that's the way that is tracked. I think just the ones that we have some others to cover, but there's some here that, you're missing just one response out of 5. It may be a low priority response, right? And you've addressed most of those. So you're always managing the risk, right? There's a certain amount of resources and you've got to utilize those resources effectively. But I do think that just kind of internally assess in terms of some of maybe the lingering responses or things that are pending to close, on whether, what if anything that y'all would do to revise or add to the management of those pending items, right?
I agree with you, and perhaps the next audit committee, we can add a section where we can report back on our approach to being more responsive into addressing the audit findings.
Yeah, some of these are very responsive. There's some work and you're like missing one, and then again, it's a low priority item, so I trust that, you guys are, as you said before, that you're addressing those major issues that involve safety or some other high-level risk. But it's these other ones that will, kind of be pushed by, maybe at the bottom of the list. But it's kind of, so if I have one, 90 days response on a low priority item, and just to kind of monitor it that way, that would, and but I would just let you guys discuss that and develop your own, procedures around that if you feel that any are warranted. Okay.
Right.
Okay, so moving on to real estate follow-up, out of the 4, they've completed 2. They finalized the procedure and the work instructions, and they finalized the job descriptions. However, they still have pending the land work system and the expired contracts.
Okay.
Okay, moving on to revenue recovery follow-up. They've completed 2 out of 3. They've completed the meter seals issuance and the records retention process. However, they do still have pending the policy, the procedures, and the work instructions. I believe the work instructions were finalized. It's more the policy and the procedures that they're getting ready to take the policy to the full board. Okay, moving on to safety and security operations follow-up. I do want to just make a note of this audit. We only focused on the security operations side because on the safety side, we did an audit back in 2023. So this department was together, and then it was separated, and then again, it's together. So those are the things that we as auditors have to ensure that when there's any type of functions change throughout PUB, that we're on the lookout, okay, who's responsible now, make sure that we don't leave out that function or that department. And then I'll talk a little bit more about that when I present my risk assessment. So the only thing that's pending is the security master plan.
Very good, okay.
Okay, so moving on to the warehouse inventory count follow-up. On this one, there was 2, and they've completed the fuel ordering and inventory procedure, and they still have pending the sand, caliche, and limestone process. And that's, the operations side is working together with the purchasing manager to finalize this document. Okay, moving on to the water and wastewater engineering follow-up. On this one, they did have 7 findings. Out of the 7, 3 have been completed. They have finalized the job descriptions, the project management, and the pending work orders. However, they're still pending the electric, water, and wastewater service policies, the procedures, expired contracts, and the records retention process.
Okay.
Okay, moving on to the last one, which is the water and wastewater project development follow-up. On this one, they did have 9 findings. Out of the 9, they've completed 5. They've completed the project management, the new construction financial guarantees for infrastructure, the daily construction reports, the reallocation of capital asset and contracts, and the vehicle inspections. And they still have pending work instructions, job descriptions, inaccurate invoice approvals, and the records retention process.
Okay, before we go to our next item, does anybody have any questions on the material that was just presented?
I'm good.
Good? Okay, very good. Let's go to item number 4, presentation discussion of draft risk assessment fiscal year 26-28.
Okay, so that's the document, this big document that has been handed out.
Yep.
So it's still in draft. I wanted to give a little background of what the risk assessment entails. So the objective of a risk assessment is to establish a standard approach for documenting a risk assessment and an annual audit plan. IA conducts a risk assessment every 3 years to develop a more specific and effective audit program based on an updated audit universe. Like I was saying, there's new departments, new tasks have been reallocated. So the risk rate is attained by gathering input from the audit committee, from executive management, and senior management. The annual audit plan is reviewed and approved by the board and the audit committee, and then the audit plan is a written document identifying specific audits, follow-up audits, and/or special requests to be performed by the IA staff for the upcoming fiscal year. So the steps that we do is we obtain the audit universe, which is a list of all the BPUB departments from the BPUB annual budget report. So what we want to make sure is that all the departments, because a lot of department, well, not a lot, but if the department is created as a new department, we want to ensure that that department is included and is audited within one of the 3 rotating years. So we also obtain the budget, which is one of the risk factors. We obtain, of course, input from executive and senior management, and then we quantify the risk based on 7 specific factors. So the 7 factors are financial, operational, compliance, reputation, strategic, audit last performed, and the number of findings. So all of these are assigned a numerical value from 1 to 3. And then we do, at the end, we have the points, and the risk levels are categorized by high, 75 to 100, moderates 51 to 74, and low 0 to 50. So if you look at the document I provided, in the very first page, we have the yearly. So these are audits that the board has, or the committee has requested for internal audit to ensure that we do these yearly. I do want to make a recommendation on the legal services contracts. I would like to exclude that for the upcoming years, because this is already an objective that we're doing every time we do an audit. So I feel like it's repetitive work of what we're doing, and that's one of the things that we've also done with all of the other audits. So the way it used to be done, like, for example, I-9. I-9 is a function or a process of human resources. So now all of those functions, we want to include them as part of the department, even if we do less audits for the year, but we capture all the different functions.
I understand.
So that's just my recommendation, but it's up to the committee if you're in agreement or if you want me to continue to do this yearly. I'd also like to recommend for the accounts payable, but if it's up to the committee.
Yeah, we don't have an action item
No.
on this one, but just as one member of the committee, it seems very logical what you're requesting.
Okay, so I can present it to the full board.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. So then we have all of the high that ranked between 75 to 100 points. And then on page 2, we have the moderate. And then on the last page, you have your low.
Over there low? I didn't see any lower there. Oh, yeah, there is low. Okay. Yeah.
So just an example, like natural gas utility management, it's still a department in the budget, but there's nothing that exists there. But we went ahead and we left it. I spoke to Mr. Dombrowski, but I left it there just to ensure that if something happens in the future, we don't lose that department number. So this is what I plan on presenting to the full board in the September 8th meeting. Do you have any questions or anything I can address?
Aside from the legal services and accounts payable, are there others that you think?
So the petty cash and the cash counts, I think those need to be done. Those need to be kept there. The warehouse annual inventory, that's done every end of the fiscal year. The department does a count of every single item, and we take part of that. It's a 3-day process. The team and I are out there. The external auditors are also part of that process, so that one it needs to be kept there. The Calpine Hidalgo power plant, that's, like Mr. Dombrowski just mentioned, it's up to the board or the committee.
On the warehouse inventory, do you guys have, like, I don't know, weekly or monthly sampling that you guys do, like to monitor the inventory accuracy?
They have random audits. I don't know if Ms. Diane is here or anybody from warehouse. Do they do daily counts? They do their own counts. They do their own counts, but what we want to ensure is when we start the fiscal year October 1st, we have an accurate count of everything that's in inventory. Our
Sure.
poll, everything, it's a lot of items out there.
Yeah, just food for thought there. Normally we're doing sampling. There's like a certain amount of sampling that you can do, and it gives you still a high percentage confidence that the inventory is relatively accurate. You know, obviously counting everything every year is maybe good practice, but I think there's new ways to monitor the inventory where you don't have to spend all of that time.
The warehouse staff are the ones that do the 100%. We only do a sample. That's all we do.
Yeah, I guess just for them, but okay.
Okay.
And then also, I guess on the bottom side, you mentioned the natural gas utility management. That's no action needed, right?
No action needed, sir.
Yeah, no, I think it looks fine. Obviously, a lot of detail. So I'll go through it a little bit.
I mean,
in
it
more
just seems,
detail.
it is a little overwhelming, right? Because there's a lot of, the audit universe is huge. And is there, and kind of going back, is there things in here that maybe shouldn't be in here? It's good to be very comprehensive and inclusive, but this is a big list.
So I worked very closely with the executive and other staff members that they assigned to rank these. I mean, the universe, in internal audit, you have to have an audit universe. Whether you choose to audit it or not, it's up to the board.
Yeah.
But I would prefer to have it all inclusive and it be part of it than not have it.
Sure. So maybe, yeah, we can have a discussion, kind of leads into the next item.
Yes, sir.
Okay, but on this item here, are there any questions? Any other questions?
I'm good, thank you.
Good. Okay, so let's go to item number 5, presentation discussion of draft annual audit plan 2025-2026.
Okay, so this is the proposed 2025-2026 annual audit plan. So what the team and I have done is we went back and we looked at the risk assessment and determined what areas are high and have not been looked in the past 3 years. So that's what we're recommending to audit for this coming fiscal year. On the moderate and low, we do have some new departments. But like, for example, I want to mention, like, for example, under moderate, enterprise solutions and IT solutions and project management, they're new departments, but we looked at them 3 years ago because they were under one department, and then that department became 3 departments. So, and that's where we need to ensure that we keep up with all of these different changes that are happening, throughout the company to ensure that we don't. So that's why we're recommending to look at least 2 of them that came out under moderate, so we haven't looked at them in the past 3 years. And I understand for Mr. Villarreal, IT is a big thing. So we want to ensure that we include them for this coming fiscal year. I mean, on the yearly, I'm going to take this document to the full board, but then I'm going to propose a new one with what we've talked or discussed that we can not include.
Okay,
So, and I guess, the board can always, I know it's probably not looked upon, favorably, but the board can always say, hey, there's another item that popped up here, we want you to add that to their calendar because certain environmental issues, exterior, interior, have come to our attention. So, the audit calendar is good, it's set, it needs to be set so that things can be done in an orderly fashion because it takes a lot of time and we have to expend resources wisely, but we can always add something. Just a couple of questions, and we did talk about this, but so every item is audited at least, is it once every 3 years?
Yes, sir.
Right. And just my input, and we had talked about this, obviously it was just a discussion, there's no action or anything like that, but I think that some items that are very low priority should be audited. Like if it's a high priority item, it should be audited, and I don't want to segment high, but if the point range between 100 and 80, I believe, or something, that's a pretty wide range for me. Some things are the highest priority and some that are high risk, and then the others that are not as high within that category, and the highest risk should be audited, once every 18 months, maybe once a year, depending on what it is, right? It's just that those low priority items, once every 3 years, depending on what it is, I just think that we need to look at that again. Maybe it's once every 4 years in order to really focus on the things that are the most important. There's some high priority items here that we haven't looked at where it's going to be a 3-year cycle, and there's some low priority items that are going to be a 3-year cycle, and you're auditing both of those, over the same time period, right? And maybe those need to be looked at for our meeting in November, right?
Okay.
In our meeting in November. So I just that's something that's going to take a little bit of time, and we're going to have to receive input from different parties to see if that'll work or not. It may not. But with this audit plan that you've submitted, I do agree with that, and I'm glad that you're going to present that to the full board. I would just make the note that if there's any other items, if there's any additional items that need to be audited, it's the board's discretion. They have to go to the chair, and then take appropriate action.
Okay.
Yeah.
I do want to mention, we do have a risk assessment and annual audit plan procedure. So if we decide, so what I can do, myself and the team, and of course with the help of Mr. Gonzalez, is update this document and have another version where we either change it to 18 months based on your feedback. And we can do that and maybe bring it back to the November meeting.
Sure, sure. No, very good. Do you have anything else to report on this item?
No, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have anything.
Okay, then it's our last discussion and our request for future agenda items.
No, I'm okay.
That's kind of open. We can call you anytime and ask you to put something on the agenda, but I appreciate the opportunity to have that in the open meeting here. So with that, I mean, before we adjourn, I want to thank you for the reports. The reports are good reports. They're presented in a concise manner. They're pretty comprehensive and complete. Good work on the risk assessment and the calendar. And I just want to express our appreciation for the work of the department. It's very necessary and important to what we do here.
Thank you.
Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Aye.
we stand adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.